welcome to episode 4 of my Teen Wolf Rewatch. I really appreciate everybody who is rocking with me, everybody who is watching these episodes. I truly appreciate you. I am still trying to get to that 500 subscriber mark. So please subscribe, like, share, talk to me. I talk back. I promise I talk back. Anyway, so let's get into episode 4 of Teen Wolf, Magic Bullet. So episode 4 opens with a news report on the animal killings in Beacon Hills. And as the news report goes on, we actually see the woman driving kind of snark at the news reports like she knows there's something different going on, which I thought was actually really interesting. But we actually see this woman and she's driving. And as she's driving, we see like something kind of move in the shadows. And at first she seems a bit worried, but like she continues to drive, right? And as we see this thing lurk in the shadows, we actually see it hop on top of her car, right? We actually see it hop on top of her car. So when it does actually hop on top of her car, we actually see her go into hunter mode. And we find out that this is another hunter. So she pulls out the shotgun, one hand in that thing. She is busting out the windows, busting at the roof, one hand. But again, this is probably a werewolf. We don't know who it is, but it's probably a werewolf. So like you just busting at it is opening up holes for it to come at you, but whatever. So eventually the werewolf is able to like kind of get the car, like get her to stop the car. She stops the car, rolls out of the car, and like she got the shotgun ready. Like badassery. Runs in this family. We're gonna talk about it, okay? So she is busting at this alpha, well, she's busting at this werewolf, and like she is actually a pretty good shot. She does shoot at him, but we also see Derek. And we see Derek like running also, and we don't know if Derek was the person who was the wolf that attacked the car, but we also see Scott here. And so the badass hunter lady actually is able to Derek. And when she does shoot Derek, she like shoots his ass. She gets him like right in the middle of his arm. And we actually see Chris Argent at home, and he's talking to Allison, and he's like, "Hey, your aunt's in town. She's actually had some car trouble. She got a flat tire. I'm finna go see about her." So Allison's like, "Cool. Yay, my aunt's in town." So we find out that the hunter lady is an Argent. And when I tell you this is just a family of badass fucking hunters, it's a family of badass hunters. Kate is a terrible fucking person, but Kate is badass none the fucking less. You hear me? So we see Chris basically pull up, and Chris and Kate are having a conversation, and Kate is like, there was a big one and then there was a slim one. And the one that I actually shot was the slim one. And I think that's Derek. And so we find out that they know that there is another wolf. Like they know that there's another wolf out there. And Derek is also out there. So we see that. And she does actually shoot Derek. We find out that what she shot Derek with could take about maybe 48 hours before it kills him. And we also find that out because Scott is listening in and watching in. But smart enough to not get involved. So what Derek doesn't actually know is that Scott was there that night. And so once Derek is shot, he actually goes to the school looking for Scott, which I thought was really funny. But he does go to the school looking for Scott. And as he's looking for Scott, he runs into Jackson. And he kind of remembers that he knows Scott. So he asks, Jackson, where's Scott McCall? Jackson gives him a bunch of bullshit about drugs and steroids and shit, and where he's getting them, and if he's supplying fucking Scott with the drugs. He's just all off base. But of course Derek is dying, so Derek has no fucking time for this shit. So he slams Jackson up against the locker, excuse me. But what we do see is when he does that, he takes his claws, because at this moment he has no control over his transformation. And once again, Derek is a bred werewolf, so he learned how to control his transformation long ago. So Derek he's out of control because this bullet that he was shot with, which was smoking purple, by the way, and he slams Jackson up against the locker, and he digs his claws into Jackson. But we also know that Derek is a beta. Keep that in mind. So while Derek is still like, maneuvering through the school looking for Scott, he actually hears Lydia and Allison having a conversation. And Lydia and Allison are talking about Scott coming over to study. And Lydia is talking Allison into fucking this man. She's like, yeah, give him a taste. And Allison is listening to her, which is just like bad peer pressure all the way around. But also like, I don't know, Derek listening to this was kind of crazy, but I don't know, he's sick. So Derek finds out from Allison and Lydia, who were talking about giving Scott some pussy, that Scott will be at the Argent's house, and he has a good idea that the Argent shot him. So he knows that Scott will have the availability to find out what he was shot with, because at this moment he still doesn't know what he was shot with. So as he's still going through the school, Scott does find out that Derek is looking for him at the school. And like they kind of like have an interaction where like Scott is like, I'm not going to help you and I'm not your friend. But Derek causes a scene and falls in front of fucking Stiles' Jeep. He just falls in front of Stiles' Jeep. And everybody is looking like, what the fuck is going on? But of course, like they're trying not to draw attention. And Derek is a very much so older person at this fucking high school. So they put Derek in Stiles' Jeep. And Derek tells Stiles once he comes to that he needs Scott to find the bullet or find a replica bullet of what he was shot with, because that's the only way he will be able to save himself. Scott tells Derek, okay, cool, I'm going to take you to your house so you can wait on Scott to bring you this bullet. And Derek's like, fuck no, I'm not waiting on Scott at my house because I can't protect myself. So basically, Stiles tells Scott that he has to find the bullet, but Scott and Allison actually go to Allison's home where they are making out on her bed. And Scott is not trying to hear that shit about look for no fucking magic bullet for Derek. So one thing that I do want to ask, like this is just, why in the hell was the Argent house not fucking sealed with mountain ash? Like I know their apartment building, the one that they stayed in after everything went down at the house, it had mountain ash like lining the basement. But the Argent home, like the original Argent home, the house that they lived in, it didn't have any mountain ash in it. Like the wolves were just coming in that motherfucker, in and out. Like especially Scott, in and out. And it's not like one of those things where it's like vampires where you can invite them in and they can come in. Like mountain ash is a barrier, like the barrier in which Scott had to push through to become a true alpha. So it's not something that you can just invite them into. So I don't understand, if these are hunters, why the fuck is the house not like lined in mountain ash? That was just a question that I came up with. Like after watching this show like so many times, that's a good question. Like why the fuck is the house not lined in mountain ash in the first season? Cause like we do see like throughout the show that Deaton's veterinarian clinic is lined with mountain ash. But so that's the thing though, because Derek is actually able to go into as long as you keep the door flap, like the little flap where you carry the animals out, is the mountain ash barrier is open. Okay, that makes sense. Never mind. I was finna go into it. I was like, hold on, wait a minute, that don't make sense. So Derek and Stiles arrive to Scott's job where other animals are, and Derek tells Stiles that if Scott isn't able to find the bullet, then he does have a last resort, which we find out the last resort is not an actual fucking option. But anyway, Scott is at Allison's house studying, and Allison's father catches them supposedly studying in the garage while they were like attempting to make out. And Allison tells Scott that her aunt is in town and that her aunt had car trouble, and of course Scott is doing 1 + 1 = 2 when he realizes that Kate is the one that was shooting at Derek. So Chris catches Allison and Scott in the garage while they're making out, and basically he's pissed. He's like, get the fuck out of my house. But of course, Kate, being the cool aunt, she steps in and she's like, no, he has beautiful brown eyes. Let's invite him for dinner. That's her boyfriend. We need to know her friends, blah, blah, blah. She's being a cool aunt, but also like, trying to suss out what Allison has going on, because one thing that they do kind of like stress in this episode is that Allison and Kate have a very, very strong relationship. Kate is stepping in, trying to be that cool aunt, and Chris is, of course, annoyed that this nigga is kissing his daughter. And like, also, I think in the back of his mind, he does also remember that Scott fell off the roof and got hit by a car and still got up and ran away. So he's also like, I don't know about you, which is understandable, I think. So before Allison and Scott get caught, Allison does tell Scott that she is very interested in archery and she's very talented in it, and she's tried many other things but had not actually been successful in those things. And she takes Scott down to the armory, which I felt like was kind of crazy. In that moment, I would, if I'm Scott, I'm getting the fuck up out of there. Because why y'all got all these kinds of fucking weapons? She explains to Scott that they're not like just gun junkies, and that they sell armor and, bullets and ammunition and guns to the local governments or the local police departments. And, basically don't judge my family. And of course, Scott like, yeah, local police are, y'all use that shit to kill people like me. But anyway, so of course we go through that. But flash forward to Allison and everybody, sitting down and having conversations, and they talk about the animal killings. And of course, Kate asks, Scott what he thinks of the animal killings, and Scott is just like, you got some more tequila. Like, he don't want to talk about it, of course. And so by the end of the night, of course, Scott and Derek are having a lot of playful banter going on back and forth. But ultimately, Derek is like looking terrible. And he's told Scott that his like last resort, if Scott can't get him the bullet, is to cut off his arm before it makes it, like the poison makes it to his heart. And so Derek and Stiles is like, yeah, that's funny. You're funny. Hilarious. Ha ha ha. Now what the fuck are we actually gonna do? But Derek is dead ass serious. Derek is dead fucking serious. He's like, no. And so he starts to create like a tourniquet, like to tie off the blood flow. And so that Stiles can use this like hacksaw or like this fucking Thanksgiving cutter, turkey cutter to cut off this man fucking arm with. And I'm just like, yeah, that's a whole lot to ask of a child. Basically, they're children. They're in high school. That's a whole lot to ask of a child. But anyway, so Derek, of course, they're asking Scott to go look for the bullet. So Scott does actually go to look for the bullet. At first, he is caught by Kate, like kind of in the wrong place. And he's like, I was looking for the bathroom. She shows him to the bathroom. But instead, he goes into Kate's room. He goes into Kate's bag. He does find the bullet bag and the bullet case. But on the bullet case, it's an inscription. And on the inscription, it says Nordic Blue Monkhood. And that's the specific type of wolfsbane it is, in order to actually like find out how to address it. So he takes a picture of the top of the engraved wood and he sends it to Stiles, and Stiles tells Derek that Scott found out what kind of bullet it is, and he told him what kind of wolfsbane it is. And Derek is like, okay, I need him to bring the bullet now. So Scott, of course, pockets the bullet, but he's trying to figure out ways to get out of the rest of this awkward ass dinner. I just want to say that every time they spend their time together, it's awkward as fuck. Between her family and Jackson and Liddy, it's always fucking awkward. Always. But anyway, so as Scott does actually create a situation where he has to leave, Kate basically accosts him at the door, and she's like, hey, so hate to do this, but my stuff has been rifled through. I don't know what the fuck you had going on, but I know it was you because I caught you in the wrong room before. So go ahead and tell me what the fuck you got in your hands or in your pocket so we can get this shit going and you can leave. Scott denies having anything. Of course, we know he does have the bullet in his pocket, but he denies ever going through any of her stuff. And Allison, of course, steps in and she's like, okay, look, you're doing too much. You're being crazy. Calm down. It's not that serious. And she's like, no, if he took something out of my, out of my bag, that is serious. I would like to say in real life that would be fucking serious. And don't you ever go against your parents if somebody steals something from them and you did not actually take it, and you know that they like your parents wouldn't do you like that, yeah, don't do that. That's fucked up. That's really fucked up. But anyway, so Allison gaslights her family because I want to say Lydia might have gave her this condom, but she's like, yeah, I went into your bag and got this condom out. And it's just a really awkward situation because everybody's like, oh, okay. So, of course, Scott leaves. And like when he gets on the other side of the door, he's like, oh, shit. Hell yeah. Hell fuck yeah. I'm finna get. Anyway, so of course, Scott uses his superhuman speed to get to the veterinarian clinic and basically get this bullet to Derek. Of course, Scott drops the bullet and it goes into the drain, and we actually see Scott like, control his transformation and be able to use his nails to actually pick up this bullet. And so they give the bullet to Derek, and Derek sets the wolfsbane in the bullet, the wolfsbane and the gunpowder, I'm thinking, in the bullet on fire, and it causes like a huge chemical reaction. He places it in the wound and he is fine. But upon being fine, of course, he comes back and he's healing. So he's getting into his bitchy ass Derek mode. And he's basically like, you think they're okay? You think they're good? Do you not see what the fuck they just did to me? Derek basically tells him like, hey, look, the Argents are hunters. They hunted me. They'll hunt you. They will hunt anybody else. Let me show you what they've actually done. And since you think they such good people, because you had one dinner and it was awkward as fuck. So Derek does take Scott and Stiles to go and see his uncle. And we find out that his uncle was actually in the house while the house was set ablaze. And he took on like a really bad, burning without actually dying, because he is part wolf, which I feel like that's why I'm like, where the fuck is Talia? Because if Peter didn't die, then why the fuck did she? Like, I don't know. We got to find out what happened to her. But anyway, because she might have been dead before the fire, to be quite honest. She might have been dead before the fire. Anyway, so Derek is telling him, like, this is what they do. This is, like, how they handle things. And, of course, it's Peter. And Peter is burned severely. And he is comatose and, like, not speaking and things like that. And right now, in this situation, like Scott is starting to understand what it means to be hunted, what it means to be the hunter and, not be the top of the food chain. So that is actually like what Derek has taught Scott in this moment by seeing his Uncle Peter.